Welcome to B&W Insights. I am your host, Mark Siefert. In today's episode, we look into design builds. Our guest, Jason Ruffatti, is going to talk about how you can save time and money by design building a project. Ready? Let's go. Jason, thanks for coming down. How long have you been at Baxter Woodman, and how did you get into this design build world?
So I've been at Baxter Woodman for just over 6 years as Assistant Wastewater Department Manager here in Illinois. I got into design build probably my second or third year here, mainly because there was an opportunity that was presented to me, but also after learning more about it, having it be sort of like an alternative project delivery method, something that's a lot more streamlined and fast. That was something that piqued my interest right away.
So a normal project is designed, bid, they approve the bid, and then it goes out for construction. What's the difference in a design build? Walk me through that process of the difference of a design build.
Sure. So there's a whole world of design build, and there's probably 20 different ways to do it. I'm going to focus on the way that we have done it in the past, sort of with our design build entity. That's Baxter Woodman Bowler LLC. We've been doing design builds with Bowler Construction for probably 30 years, and we started an official company with them just about 10 years ago. So we do it in a way, it's called sort of guaranteed lump sum pricing. So we come in, we price up a project based on a defined scope, and then we provide a proposal to municipalities and our clients, and that's essentially that is what the project will cost, and they know that up front, and then they proceed with the design and construction of the project.
So there's not multiple companies bidding on it. There's not a low bid. It's a negotiated price, and that's what it is. No change orders, no higher, no lower. It is a lump sum. That is a guaranteed price. Coming from a municipality as a public works director, I feel like a lot of people are under the misconception that municipalities in Illinois couldn't do design builds. I now know that's not true, but where did that misconception come from, or how can you dispel that misconception that's out there?
So that is a common misconception I hear constantly, and really how it's spelled out is there are home rule municipalities and non-home rule municipalities. I think a good rule of thumb you can think of is population of 25,000 and up are typically home rule entities. Population lower than that are typically non-home rule entities.
Absolutely.
Non-home rule entities have to follow Illinois Municipal Code, which means they have bidding limits where they have to go out to public bid. However, that just changed in 2024. They are allowed to do design build for public projects as a non-home rule entity. You just have to have a competitive RFQ process for your design build entity that you choose.
RFQ is?
Request for qualifications.
Okay. But continue on, sorry.
And then for home rule entities, which is the vast majority of entities that we deal with specifically in Illinois, they all have bidding limits. However, the big asterisk there is they set their own ordinance. So most have anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000. Anything above that, they have to bid out publicly. However, if their council or alderpersons have a 2/3 vote that say, hey, we want to move forward to design build on this project, they can waive that bidding rule.
So we talk about design build, but what are the advantages? Why would a municipality say, we're not going to go out to bid, we're not going to go low bid? What's that advantage of doing the design build?
So I would describe it in 3 ways. You want to use design build if you have a project where you need or really want a particular manufacturer. You have a project where otherwise it involves heavy, complex electrical systems, i.e. very long lead time systems. Design build kind of works where we are essentially in final design and construction starts at the same time. So you're ordering long lead time equipment while you're filling in the details of final design. So that's sort of bled in together. So while you're waiting for those year-long lead time equipment items, you are continuing design and even starting some, initial construction items. So schedules are huge. We see anything from like a 30 to 50% schedule decrease as compared to typical design bid build.
Okay.
Also, engineering cost savings, because those things are happening simultaneously and there's no formal bidding process, no formal bidding plans and specs. Our engineering costs are reduced with the design build.
Are there, and I know you mentioned the large and complex electrical or having a specific vendor, but what types of projects are a better fit for the design build methodology? Is it water? Is it wastewater? Is it transportation, or is it all of them? Where do we see that projects fit really well into this design build?
Sure. With the way that we do design build with the guaranteed lump sum price, it's good to have a project that has a smaller amount of risk. So typically we try to do things that are above ground primarily, things that we know we have a lot of information about. We can go there, we can go on a site visit, we can see what we're dealing with. We know exactly what we're going to do for the improvements. Typically, you won't see design builds done when it has to do with underground, unknown conditions like, straight water main replacements, sanitary sewer, storm sewer.
So what you're saying is a good design build, maybe on the wastewater side, a bar screen. You can see the bar screen, you know what you're replacing it with. On the drinking water side, maybe pump replacement, electrical MCCs or something like that. So you're looking at items that are above ground, easy to see conditions for, and then get pricing for.
Yeah, that's not to say that we don't do underground design builds or won't. We certainly will. However, the conditions have to be relatively known. It's good to not be on a county road or something like that, somewhere where we know where we can put this pipe in. We're not going to encounter a lot of issues, so we can honor that guaranteed lump sum price that we provided up front.
And, continually using lump sum, going into the funding aspect of this, are all the standard funding options available? What is the available funding mechanisms? Are loans and grants available, or is it all, local funds? How can we fund a design build project?
Typically, design builds are locally funded, cash funded by a municipality. Illinois SRF does not allow design builds. This is something we've been pushing them on for years. They are, at least the current administration there, is not interested in changing that. We'll see if that changes in the future. There are a handful of other states, not a lot in the U.S., that do allow design build for SRF funding. I don't have that list on hand.
But grants?
Grants, we have not run into issue with any grants.
Okay, so grant is a possibility for design build.
Yes.
That's huge, because the amount of grants that are coming out currently and the amount of grant funding has started to increase over the last few years. So that's huge that funding's allowed.
Yeah, not to mention with grants, you usually are kind of under the gun on a schedule. They
Yes.
need it to be built. They'll disperse the money to you when you're under contract with a contractor or under construction or
Absolutely.
built, and design build will get you there a lot faster.
So we talk about, I mentioned previously that I didn't know design builds were allowed. The laws are changing, like you mentioned, for non-home rule communities. Public education's a key aspect of the municipal landscape. What are we doing? What are you doing to make sure municipalities know that this is available construction type, know that this is out there, and they're allowed to do it? So what have you been doing? How are you getting out there?
So I've been doing two things: educating the clients I spend a lot of time with on the ability to do design build. Again, I don't throw it out for every project under the sun. Throw it out for projects that make sense for all parties involved. I've also been going out and doing sort of similar presentations to some of the information I've told you today to some of our clients, newer clients, or even clients that are just interested in design build in general.
Nice.
Yeah.
Give me a list. Give me some of the design build projects you've worked on. Why were they the right fit, and what the outcome was?
Sure. I think the key ones that I've worked on in the past have been for two clients, Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District and Grove Sanitary District, both of them very similar projects, installing combined heat and power engines at their wastewater treatment plants that take biogas from the anaerobic digestion process and essentially create electrical energy and thermal energy. The reason why this is a good candidate is two reasons. Those engines are very long lead time items, as well as the associated electrical. And the longer those utilities do not have those engines in place, they're essentially flushing money down the toilet, figuratively.
So you saw that this was a good opportunity. What was the outcome? The outcome, obviously, it was a good project because we continued doing them. But what was the thought process for the municipality of when they heard design build that they said this was the way to go?
So the thought process was for both of these municipalities, for their first engines, we did traditional design bid build projects. For one, it went well, and for one, it did not go well. One was ended up with we all know in a design bid build and project manuals and things like that, you can end up with an or equal statement for particular equipment. Well, a low bid contractor came in with an or equal, a manufacturer that we did not want, and that engine lasted 3 years and blew up. So the design build process allowed them to have control, not only on the vendor and the manufacturer that they received, but also the contractor and subcontractor team that put the units in that has experience.
So when you're talking to a municipality, or a municipality says, I have this project that I think may be a good fit for design build, how and when do you start talking about if it's a good fit? How's that, do they bring you a project, or is it when they say, hey, we'd like to do this project, and you hear it and you say, oh, this is perfect for design build, or is it clients reaching out to you?
I'd say more often than not these days, it's me being aware of our clients' CIPs and picking out projects that I think would be good candidates for design build.
Okay.
And having that conversation with them. I'd say more often than not, we agree and we go down the path of at least generating a price and then making a decision after that. But once, I'd say many of our clients have gotten into comfort with design build on certain types of projects, they have recommended, hey, can we do this design build? Can you, give me a month and a half and I'll get a price for you, kind of thing.
So if a client starts as a design bid build and they're starting to realize, man, this might be a good design build, can they pivot?
Oh, absolutely. And what I would recommend is what we always recommend with there's a spectrum of complicated projects, right? If it's a very straightforward project, we'll almost do 5% design, and that'll be enough for us to generate a guaranteed price. If it's a little bit more complicated, we'll recommend going up to a 30% design and then using those documents to base our design build price on. So I'd say if you're anywhere in that 0 to 30% design period, you can pick up and pivot.
And we see a lot of communities doing that because they're seeing the complexity, or they're seeing the lack of complexity, and they're seeing pricing skyrocket around the industry, correct?
Price volatility. It's nice to have a guaranteed price going in before a project and being able to communicate that to your city council, your village board.
Yeah, you're not waiting for a budget. You're not going to budget with an assumed number. You have the actual
the actual number. It is fully bonded and insured. And you're not waiting till bid day to find out that electrical equipment has tripled, which we've all seen in the past.
Are there any issues with getting IEPA permits? Is there any issues getting any permits for design build?
No.
It's still the same process where you send down a set of plans and they're taking a look at it?
Absolutely.
What have you learned? Obviously, you said you started doing this about 4 years ago. What have you learned in the design build process that has really changed, or what have you learned to make this process better for yourself and for Baxter Woodman?
Yeah, I would say some of this is selfish, but with a design build, we are all on the same team. So general contractor, engineer, I would even put owner and subcontractors are all on the same team. Our incentives are aligned to the success of the project. No one's trying to nickel and dime anyone to make extra money. That being said, all of us on the same team design meetings, construction meetings, we're all in the same room, speaking the truth. So we've learned a lot from our subcontractors who've been, for example, building piping systems and things like that for 50 years, that they can essentially make me better at my job of engineering.
And make the project better.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And I'm able to take those lessons, move them into regular designs as well.
What challenges have you encountered in the last 4 years in design builds? And besides the lack of, knowledge in the overall industry of that design builds, but what are some of these challenges that you see that you've had to overcome?
Sure. I think ultimately, especially lately since COVID, we live in a volatile world of pricing and lead times. So we've had, this happens very rarely, I would say, but we've had it where we sort of had a guaranteed pricing and lead time on a particular item at project start, and then some world event happens, and actually you'll have another year on that until that gets here, kind of thing. And I think ultimately, with how streamlined and lean design build is, you're able to get everyone at a table and figure out how to pivot and what can we get done now while we're waiting for that? Can we temporary power something while we're waiting for that?
To that point, you mentioned that everybody on the design team and the construction team is in the same room, they're on the same page. Mm-hmm. How easy, and does it make it easier, I should say, does it make it easier then to construct something because you can say, all right, we could do this part of the project while we're waiting on this, and because everybody has that same goal. Talk a little bit about how, the schedule can change and how things are getting done when you're waiting on a part.
Right. What I really like about it is there's not as formal of a paperwork route when making changes or changing your process or something like that. For example, if we want to make a change, if something is delayed, we can all sit in a room, take notes, agree on it, thumbs up, move on. That's, a half an hour versus formal change orders, formal letters that have to go bounce around to each party, everyone think about it and approve it, and then, a month later, we're finally making that change. So I think it's sort of the streamlined and lean nature of the project.
As communities start to see that this is a good process, that this is a efficient process that's going to save them time and money, where do you see design builds going in the next 5, 10 years? Do you see them, is it exploding? Is it going to be staying consistent? What do you see?
I would say I believe it is exploding, at least from what I've seen in the last my 2 or 3 years of experience doing it, especially as state and federal government is putting tons of money into public infrastructure. The reason why they changed some of these laws, particularly the state of Illinois with non-home rule municipalities, make it easier for design build is because of the long project durations and how hard it is to get that money out the door and get projects done quickly with design bid build. So I only see it increasing from here on out.
For the listeners here, give them your elevator pitch on why you think design build is the route to go on a project that is simple, above ground. What's that reason?
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I would recommend owners and our clients to pick out projects that they are, number one, worried about budget and worried about being done in a very high quality manner, not wanting to give it to a low bidder contractor, which normally they do just fine, but sometimes they do not because they did not bid a job correctly. Ultimately, design build allows for, it's sort of like an open collaborative team. So you've got engineer, contractor, subcontractors, and owners all on the same team with the same incentives to provide a good project at budget. It eliminates the formal bidding process, which I think is engineering cost savings. You don't need bidding level plans and specs.
Right.
And then if you need to get a project done quickly and not deal with, or at least mitigate the effects of long lead times or even, long engineering times, design build is a great option for that.
Well, thanks for coming down. We appreciate your time today. As you can see, a design build can save a municipality time, can save them money, and really can get everyone on the same page to make sure you're working towards that one goal of getting a project done efficiently. From our entire team here at Baxter Woodman, have a great day.